VIBAL.ph as our official hashtag to our VIBAL webinars. Experience learning, Kabibal. And now, to proceed with our webinar this afternoon, it is my pleasure to introduce to you our distinguished speaker for today. Our speaker for today is a consultant evaluator of K-12 Philippine Basic Education Curriculum and academic consultant for Sisters of Mary Philippines. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brother Roderick M. Aguirre.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So once again, we're here for to learn something about how we can improve our programs, school programs, in making sure that our students are learning a lot from the things that we prepare for them, and to ensure that the programs that we provide for them are responsive and at the same time relevant not only to the felt needs of our students, but also responsive to the needs of the society. And these are the things that we really need to consider when we come up with school programs, because we believe that education is a catalyst of change, and we are here, we are existing to help our society produce individuals who will. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was not able to. All right. I was already talking, and yet I have not switched on my video. Okay, so you're seeing me right now. And what was that? That was kind of weird. I wasn't able to see myself. Anyway, so I'm using a headpiece and a microphone. I hope I'm coming across to you clear. And according to Lusada, this is a noise. There's a noise reduction something in the microphone. So I hope that by using this, I will be able to minimize the noise surrounding me, because beside our building is an ongoing construction of I don't know, it's an apartment, I suppose, and there are a lot of dogs here. So I hope that this will facilitate a better discussion for this afternoon. Okay, so let us now look at the things that we can do to help our students maximize their learning through our learning programs that we provide for them at school. So let me share with you my PowerPoint presentation. There we go. And again, if you have questions and clarifications along the way, do not hesitate to key in your questions and comments on the comments box below. All right, so for this afternoon, I will be dealing with PPST, okay, one of the domains again of Philippine Professional Standards for Teachers. And this is focusing now on relevance and responsiveness, this curriculum instruction, focusing on relevance and responsiveness of learning programs. So we would like you to realize that it's very important for us to provide designs and implement relevant and responsive learning programs that develop the knowledge and skills of learners and different ability levels. The book that I've, not really the book, but an article that I've read about responsiveness of learning programs is from Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, I know that you guys know Mahatma Gandhi as considered to be one of the most famous philosophers in history, but he is one of the supporters. He is one of the greatest supporters of education, and he saw the role of education in helping change societal problems, change society to a better one. And what's good thing about relevance and responsive and learning programs this afternoon's topic is considering also Mahatma Gandhi's perspective about holistic education. All right. So let me share to you our flow for this afternoon, our agenda. And this is going to be just, simple presentation of the things we're going to discuss this afternoon. And we will start with an introduction. We'll just look into what's happening with our students in the school. So we're going to investigate a little the school and the school community, what it does to our students. Are we actualizing the various potentials of our students, or we are just looking at certain aspects of our students' potential, thereby only providing our students with a limited type of learning programs for our students. Probably we're just providing them with academic programs or co-curricular programs, but we have not identified all other programs like co-curricular programs, non-curricular programs that would also help our students' developmental needs. So not just academic needs, but also all other needs. And in previous webinars, we've already talked about the holistic needs of our students. We're looking at the language needs. We're looking at the mental skills development of our students, the physical and well-being, and of course, the spiritual well-being. These are the things that we need to provide our students with. I'm not saying that the academic programs of our school would not necessarily develop all of those areas of the holistic development of individual or of our students. But the problem with curricular problems, the problem with with curricular programs, academic programs, they are so curriculum based, so structured that it does not allow it doesn't, it allows little of differentiation, allow a little bit of deviation depending on the individual pace of development and depending on the individual learning styles. And they're the things that we need to look into as well. And that's what we're going to discuss this afternoon as to identifying whether our learning programs at school are responsive and relevant to our students as a whole, as a community, and at the same time as individuals, because we have to look at our students not just as a group of population, a group of grade levels like grade 3 students or grade 7 students, populace, but we have to look at them as individuals, that there is not a possibility, but it's a reality that every student is quite different from the other, and we have to respect that too. Then we'll proceed to a little bit of a conversation. I want this to be more of a talk of lecture. I know that you're out there, but I'll be engaging with myself. This is what I call as think aloud protocols. So I'll be engaging a lot of think aloud, like I'm doing right now, thinking about what's really happening in the school. And what's good thing about that is we are now at the verge of changes in the way we provide our students with learning programs, especially via online platforms and via distance education approaches. So just a little bit of conversations, okay? In the conversation, and then we'll have open forums. So if you have questions and comments along the way, so do not hesitate to key in your comments, and then we're going to answer that at the end of my session. Before I end my session, not the end of the session, but before I end the session, all right? And then finally, we will have. I'll post to you some. I'll give you a little summary, of course, and then post you some challenges. And the challenge that I'm going to present here are coming from two most well-known philosophers in education and well-known philosophers in the human history. And I think mga ina-idol ko po ng mga philosophers na hoping that someday I would be considered as also considered as a modern philosopher in education. Anyway, just wishful thinking too. Wala namang masamang mangarap, diba? All right, so let's begin with introduction. Let us try to understand concepts about school and the school community. So I'll present you certain situations about our students, because the responsiveness or relevance of how to gauge the relevance and responsiveness of the learning programs provided for our students will definitely be observed from our students' behavior, our students' changes in terms of their mental capacity, behavior, and their attitude. Okay, so let us begin with a student who's very studious, very academically inclined, who is focused on finishing his or her basic education or a degree in college, perhaps by studying a lot, going to the library, studying a lot. I'm not saying this is wrong, but remember, what we need to help our students, I think what's lacking with the students is so focused with grades, so focused with academics, is that entirely she is forgetting the other side or other domains that she needs to improve on, like the physical aspect, the well-being. I think I'm one of the when I was in. I don't know if I was in elementary or in high school. I think I was in college already. That I was so hooked up with academics, and I forgot to take care of myself. So yun po nagkaroon ako ng ulcer Dahil study, coffee, study, and I forgot. And I think that was the first year or second year of my college years, and I realized that I had to diverse myself, and that's why I went back to being an athlete. And then one thing that we need to help our students is that a well balanced development, not just mental, not just academic, but also all the other aspects. All right. So kulang pa siya ng well-being in sports, perhaps, and spirituality too. Also, there are a lot of students who are physically inclined, sports inclined, athletics inclined, that they are so good at it, and then the school provides them with lots of programs, lots of learning programs to improve their skills, to improve their athletic skills, their sportsmanship skills. Sometimes at that point is that this type of students also forget that they need also to learn acquire knowledge from their academics. So hindi lang nababalan siguro, okay? Because the school tries to lean more towards them, our athletics, because they bring accolade, they bring rewards and recognition to the school, so that this type of this group of students are, one way or the other, are given special attention, special considerations, and to the point that the students feel that if I continue being physically inclined, physically good, not necessarily have to be academic, then I'll be just fine and finish high school or finish college. Then again, after graduating, are all the students moving towards professional basketball federation, towards professional athletics groups and all? I think we need to teach our students, provide them with a well balance, again, not just academics, not just physical, but that too. Another aspect that we have is that we have a lot of students who are bullying. So lack of virtues, lack of values, lack of well, basically attitude, the right, meron po sinasabing right attitude, right values. Kasi sinasabing values yung mga tama na, no? All right, I think we call them values, and then ethics and behavior. So I think one of the many things that why bullying is now prolific, not just in classes, not just in schools, but also online, is because I think, I'm not saying it's just a school. It's just the total climate that we provide to our students, that one way or the other, we are not able to observe these children outside the classroom, and therefore that we may not be able to look at their socialization habits and the way they deal with other people. I observe a lot of things that students have a different behavior at home, different behavior outside the school. Nasa papunta pa lang sila ng school, and another behavior when they are at school. And I think consistency of this behavior is something that we need to look into, the probabilities that it would pose a lot of personality problems, not just to those students who are being bullied, but also to those students who are bullying. They're both victims. Ito po dapat na makita po natin na yung mga nagbubully, biktima din po yan. Biktima po yan ng maling exposure, maling modeling. And then yung mga nabubully po, biktima din po sila. So we'll have to treat them as equally as possible. So if, say, the school only protects the bullied ones, okay, and shun away and condemn the bullies. So we, tapos Christian school pa tayo, and we are a Catholic country and a Christian country, then we condemn those who are committing sins. Ano bang tawag sa atin doon? So we have to see that the people who are our students who are committing mistakes and errors are also need help. They also need help. And this is what the school learning programs are all about. It's only for students who are weak and extremely those who are good at? Do we have enhancement programs for the best athletes? Do we have learning programs for the best mathematics students, the students who are best in mathematics and science? What about those students who are weak? Yes, we have intervention programs, we have remedial programs, but what about those in between? All right? So yun po ang iniisip po natin. Dapat nai-hit po natin ang mga learning programs that we provide for our students, hit all the domains that our students need to improve on, not just academics, but also all other domains as well. The spiritual domain, the social emotional domain, the physical domain, the language domain, and the cognitive domain. Now, here's a very interesting framework about the school community and its purpose. So the learning programs exist, the school and the learning programs, kasi wala namang school. Anong gamit ng school kung di siya provide ng learning programs? The primary purpose or the primary purpose of the existence of a school is to provide learning programs. And at this point this afternoon, we're going to talk about the learning programs for our students. There's also what we call as learning programs for our school personnel, both for teaching and non-teaching. And that's what not we're gonna discuss this afternoon because this PPST. If this is PPSSH, that's Philippine Professional Standard for School Heads, dun to papasok ang mga learning programs for teachers and non-teaching personnel. Since this is PPST, it is towards teachers skills in developing and honing these skills towards provide learning programs for our students. And this is towards students now. So the learning programs in the school should be, of course, primarily it should be curricular programs. Dahil the school exists because it has to implement what the Department of Education, a centralized curriculum that all schools should implement, be it private school or public school. They have to consider that all the curricular programs prescribed by the Department of Education should be considered as the minimum learning competencies. Hindi po natin dapat yan. It's non-negotiable. Ang tawag po natin ay non-negotiable elements. Now, pwede po tayo magdagdag. Pwede tayong magdagdag, improve pa, but hindi tayo pwede magbawas. So that's why they're called curricular programs. And they are well structured from preschool up to senior high school. All right? So ito po yung mga stages natin. Kaya tinawag siyang curricular programs because there is a continuity of the programs being provided for our students. And they are structured in such a way that experts and teachers sequence the learning competence and the standards from the easiest to the most foundational skills to the highest form of foundation and application of foundations. Okay? Hindi alam yan ng bata. Okay? This is what we call the learning programs based on what students ought to know. Ano ang dapat nila matutunan? This is something that students wouldn't know. They may not like these curricular programs, but these are requirement needed for them to survive not just all other academic programs, but also the workplace, also in the industries when they graduate. Okay? Katawag nga natin dito ay based knowledge and skills. Now, next would be the co-curricular programs. These are programs that emanate from the curricular programs that help students, continue on, non-structured na ngayon. So these are these are student organizations, student learning programs. Those are student programs like campus journalism, that unstructured na ngayon. Unstructured kasi walang curriculum sunod-sunod. Pero it's a clear application. What they are learning from the curricular programs, they are now able to immediately apply in the co-curricular programs. So co-curricular programs are also important requirement for schools to offer to the students as one of those learning programs. Kasi nga, anong gamit ng curricular programs kung hindi makikita agad ng bata ng application. So dapat itong mga organizations na to, ito yung mga school programs, school co-curricular programs, help students immediately apply what they are learning from the classrooms, but in a very in an unstructured environment. Kasi sa curricular kasi structured na. So mag-strike naman tayo ng balance. Okay? Kung graded ang curricular programs, ang co-curricular programs hindi graded. Evaluated perhaps in a qualitative format, but in the curricular programs, talagang hindi. Meron talagang sinusunod ng mga protocols. Structured siya. While on the other side of the triad of the learning programs, we have the non-curricular programs. The non-curricular programs are outside school programs like invitations, mga sports invitations, quiz bees, and activities that the school deem necessary for students to participate in order to know the level of proficiency of the learning of their knowledge and skills from the curricular and co-curricular programs. Okay, So, ang non-curricular programs kasi hindi ito ginawa. Ang curricular kasi at saka co-curricular programs offered to ng school. Well, the non-curricular programs, these are quiz-based contests, regional, national na sinasalihan, no? Na choice ngayon ng school kung pwede kung uh, ipapasok niya sa as a part of the program of the school. All right? But even if these are the three major, there are many other programs. I'm not going to discuss other programs, learning programs, but these are the most major learning programs that the school should implement. So outside the curricular and the co-curricular and non-curricular programs, what really is more important are the hidden curriculum. Okay? Ito yung sinasabi po natin na hindi natin na structure, pero ito po yung mas malaki ang impact sa learning sa mga bata. They're not considered programs. They're considered as factors that contribute to the level of effectiveness of the learning of our students via the learning programs. Okay, one of which, okay, surrounding that, these are the factors. You have the cultural expectations. Ito yung sinasabi natin, the cultural expectations are the high expectations and the low expectations. The problem with the consistency of the implementation of the curricular programs and the co-curricular programs and the non-curricular programs could be highly influenced by the cultural expectations of our teachers. When I say cultural expectations, these are some teachers in a particular subject area have high expectations. A lot of students would do their utmost. They may hate the teacher, but they will do their best to satisfy the high stakes requirements of the teacher. As opposed, and then at the end, when they pass the grade or the subject, they pass the subject, they feel like that they deserve the grade. They feel like pinagpaguran talaga nila ang resulta ng kanilang grado. As opposed to low stakes expectations of a teacher, yung hindi na nga mataas ang expectation, tapos okay lang na makapasa, okay lang basta makapag-submit ng mga requirements. Ang feeling ng mga bata, there's what we call as the hidden idea to the students that okay lang pala na hindi ako masyadong mag-perform, mag-participate, or to give my utmost, to give my best, kasi I will still pass the subject. This is one of the many problems with the learning programs in school, which we call as inconsistency of cultural expectations. May mga teacher na stricto, may mga teacher na hindi. May mga teacher na ang daming binibigay na requirements, may mga teacher na halos wala namang binibigay. So the school must come up with a system that it must be consistent for all teachers. Okay? Yan ang problema ng sabi niya, bakit kaya itong mga batang to graduate naman ng school na yan, bakit iba-ibang ang pangit ng ugali? Galing naman siya sa school. Well, really have to blame the school for that, because the school should have provided a learning program that is consistent, not just on the 4 areas, but also on the influence, okay, all the other factors that influence the consistency of the program, learning programs, co-curricular and co-curricular and non-curricular programs. Trabaho ng school yun, management po yun. So dapat in-oriente ang mga teachers na, kahit pa yan subject kahit pa yan araling panlipunan, dapat high stakes pa rin yan. Pag mathematics, high stakes pa rin yan, and so on and so forth. Hindi yung math lang at saka science ang kinakatakutan ng mga bata. All other subjects hindi pwedeng ganun. So lahat ng mga subjects, dapat ang estudyante are struggling to do their best. Okay, struggling to do their best so that they will feel that the grades that they will receive and they will get, they feel that they deserve it. Kasi pinagpaguran nila. Yun lang naman po ang idea ng cultural expectations. Para malaman ng bata na lahat ng kanyang makukuha, be it grade, be it accolade, be it praises, ay pinagpaguran niya. Yan po ang ibig sabihin ng learning programs. Hindi lang gumawa tayo ng program, pero the way it was delivered by the teacher or the group of teachers, nag-iba pa rin. Okay? So, yun ang sinasabi po natin na responsiveness and relevance of the learning programs. Magkaiba kasi may mga program na ang ganda ng ginawa ng programa ng school, pero it was delivered inconsistently. Yun ang sinasabi ng when I presented a paper in Singapore, Singapore or Malaysia, but I presented a paper on consistency of standards implementation. One of the many questionable practices in the Philippines is that we have our educational system comes up with really good learning programs for students, but our huge problem is implementation and monitoring. Doon tayo nagkakaroon ng problema. Maganda ang curriculum, maganda ang programa, pero sa implementation, weak. Bakit? Sa implementation kasi nandun po sinasabi natin na training of teachers. Hindi lang po kakayanan ng isang araw yan. Monitoring, support. Yan mga yan. So cultural expectations. Another one is the cultural values. Okay? Ang ugali ng teacher, ang ugali ng mga tao sa school, kasi nga whether we like it or not, values are caught. So ang teacher na sinasabi itong example na natatawa kasi, ang teacher na nagsasabi na, halimbawa lang ha, ang nagsasabi natin, always be on time to class. Pero si teacher palagi late. So anong tinuturo? Oh, ang ganda nga ng programa. Magaling nga si teacher magturo ng science. Magaling nga si teacher magturo ng English. Pero late naman. Anong cultural values ang tinuturo natin sa mga bata? Na pag tumanda ka na at naging magaling ka na, you don't have to follow rules and regulations. These are some of the inconsistency of the responsiveness and the relevance of the implementation of learning programs. Another factor to contribute to the success, okay, or the otherwise of learning programs will be the cultural perspectives, okay? When we say cultural perspectives, we're looking at here consideration of anong magagawa ng kababaihan at magagawa ng kalalakihan. There are times that we consider that this type of certain activities are only good for boys and there's certain activities are good for girls. Hindi pwede ganon. Although we know that there is what we call as equitable tasks for boys and girls, pero hindi po natin dapat stereotype. Okay, cultural perspective is that giving the idea that if our students put their minds on it, they could do their utmost, prepare for it, and then they will definitely succeed there with, of course, with the support of the school. Okay? Kagaya ng kapag panglalaki lang, bakit? Wala bang mga galing na mga mathematicians na babae? Ang dami-dami kayo babae mo kilala na ang galing-galing sa math. In fact, mas marami nga pa sila kasi sa lalaki. Cultural perspectives. Another one is, we give special attention to say, sa klase mayroong galing sa sa isang tribo ng Pilipinas. Okay? And what we do is we provide them with special attention. Dapat meron po tayong sinasabi na pwede tayo magbigay ng intervention programs for them. We could provide them with enhancement programs for them or remediation program for them, but they must be allowed to be mainstreamed. Hindi yung special attention kasi nagkakaroon din ng feeling ang bata na bakit hindi ako kasali sa mainstream sections. Oh, because you're special. Ano ka, meron kang special needs kasi you come from a different culture or you have special needs. Kahit may special needs, sige, bigyan siya ng special program, special learning program, but mainstreaming, inclusion is our idea. Okay? Para ma-feel ng bata na, kasi pag sinaprate natin ang mga batang ganito, kahit sabihin pa natin that that's for their own good, they feel that they are different. Mas lalo natin pinaparamdam sa kanila, nakakaiba silang estudyante kaysa sa iba. Alright? So we are doing more damage than good. So, pwede po siyang add-on learning programs. Pero our utmost aim there is to eventually mainstream them. Okay, makabalik sila sa normal age group and normal grade level. And next, we have the curricular topics. The curricular topics is how teachers treat a certain topic. Kung ang teacher daw sa isang topic ay very passionate about the topic she is teaching, nalalaman ng bata na importante nilang matutunan ng subject na to or ang topic na to. Pero kung ang teacher mag-deliver ng isang topic ay medyo normal, para lang factual about the deliver, students feel that this topic is not really important. So the way the teacher delivers a topic and the level of attachment to the topic makes the students feel whether these topics are important or not. Therefore, influencing them whether they're going to listen well or give full attention to the teacher or not. So the idea there is that lahat naman importante na topics, di ba? So dapat passionate lahat si teacher sa lahat ng topics. Hindi, ay, alam ko to. Parang ginawa ng ibang teacher sa curriculum ay checklist. Ay, paborito ko tong lesson na to. Ay, hindi ko to masyado. So the way, the passionate, the level of passion of the teacher of a certain topic definitely affects the motivation of learners to to pay attention to the teacher. Kahit gaano kaganda ang curriculum, kahit gaano kaganda ang module, kung nga ang pagkakadeliver ng topic ay hindi ganong ka-passionate. Research showed that kids are well motivated to listen and pay attention to the teacher when they see the teacher is well engaged, okay? Engaged and passionate about the topic he or she is discussing. Another area or factor that influence the success of the learning programs for students would be teaching strategies. Okay, the teaching strategies are not just teaching strategies. These are also ways for students to acquire certain skills, how to attack and understand the lessons. So teaching strategies must stay there for quite some time. Pwede pong isang linggo, dalawang linggo. Ang nangyayari kasi sa mga teacher ay araw-araw ibinabago ang strategies. Ano nga naman matututunan ng bata na strategy para atakihin at intindihin ang mga subject areas. Ang mga lessons sa subject na yon. Halimbawa, si teacher gumamit ng KWL on Monday, tapos pagdating sa second day, iba na naman ang strategy, ibang strategy ginamit, nag-jigsaw puzzle. On the third day, so be consistent. So let the strategies, so for this week, we'll be using the following strategies. These are not just teaching strategies, but for you to understand, ways for you to use in order to understand the lesson. So teaching strategies are two-faceted. It's a way of delivering the subject matter in a very comprehensible way, but it's also the other facet of teaching strategies. But these are also learning strategies as well for students. Second to the last, we have the school structures. Okay, pag sinabi po natin sa school structures, ito po yung hindi po dapat nakikitaan ng mga bata na iba ang trato sa mga non-teaching personnel, iba ang trato sa mga teaching personnel, sa mga staff, sa mga maintenance people, and also the school structures allow the students to see that if we want our students to be compassionate, to be just, so lahat ng mga tinuturo natin ng mga cultural values, dapat nakikita yan sa how we treat with the other people in the school. After all, the school is considered to be the microcosm of society. Okay? And finally, we have the institutional rules. Dapat consistently implemented. Okay? May mga bata na feeling nila na bakit siya palaging naalala ko tuloy yung estudyante ko. Nakipag-away kasi ako meron kaming sports coordinator dati sa PNU, and then may letter na we would like to excuse the student kasi may practice po sila for that hour and so on and so forth. Kasi nga, 1 month from now, meron na silang competition. I was an athlete before, but the way the hours for practicing is outside the co-curricular programs. They fall under the non-curricular or the co-curricular program schedule. All right? Hindi sinasama doon. Kasi feeling, meron kasing bata nang sabi namin, Sir, gusto ko, paano pa pumasok sa pagiging athlete? Kasi masarap pala maging athlete kasi palaging excuse sa klase. Hindi pwede ganun ang institutional rules. There shouldn't be exceptional rules for athletes in accomplishing curricular programs. Ang curricular programs dapat for all students regardless of their inclinations. 'Di ba? Hindi yung mayroong pag athlete iba ka, pag performing arts ka, nasa theater ka or nasa singing group ka, iba ang trato sa No, hindi dapat. Pag curricular programs, kaya tinawag siyang fixed and structured for all students. Siguro magkakatan na lang doon sa co-curricular programs ka non-curricular programs. Right? So sometimes the inconsistent implementation of institutional rules also affect the effectiveness and the responsiveness of the learning programs of schools. All right? Deduction pa lang ako, dami ko nang sinabi. No? So, the formal curriculum consists of the courses, lessons, and learning activities students participate in. Okay? Dapat lahat ng estudyante, kaya tinawag sa formal curriculum, lahat ng subjects, hindi po siya elective. Okay? Ang mga subjects na yan, lahat dapat makuha ng bata. As well as the knowledge and skills educators intentionally teach to students. Okay? That's why they're considered to be as the backbone. Okay? The backbone program or the backbone learning program of the school. It boils down to the curricular programs. Yun po. Okay? Kasi basihan po ng paggawa ng co-curricular programs and then pagtanggap na non-curricular programs are based on our co-curricular programs. Okay? Now, the factors that influence the consistency, the responsiveness of the learning programs and are what we call the hidden curriculum. So the hidden curriculum consists of the unspoken or implicit academic, social, and cultural messages that are communicated to students while they are at school. Ito yung, ayun nga sinabi ko kanina, okay, cultural values, cultural expectations, perspectives, curricular topics, yung lahat ng sinabi ko po sa school structure, institutional rules, teaching strategies, these are all factors that contribute to the total behavior of students, and also called hidden curriculum. So pag sinabi po natin learning programs, huwag lang tayong gumagawa ng programs. Isipin po natin ano ang mga behavior that should come with this program. Okay? Minsan ang nilalagay lang po natin doon ay objectives. We have the cognitive objectives, but the behavioral objectives are not clearly stated as well. Okay? Kaya maganda po sa K-12 curriculum dahil it tries to mitigate the balance between the content standards and the performance standards. That's why we have two standards in our curriculum to make sure that within the curricular programs magkakaroon na agad ng cognitive at saka behavioral performances. All right, let's proceed to our conversation. Conversation po tawag natin, but this is more of a question that we're going to answer. There are 4 questions that are formulated for us to talk about and discuss together. Again, when I say discuss, I'll be just thinking aloud. Let's start with question number 1. So what are learning programs? Okay, ano ba talaga mga learning programs na yan? Ano pa sasabihin nyo sa amin? All right, so the learning programs are, okay, I'm just gonna track my time. Baka lang naman mag-proceed ako, meron ako meeting ng 3:30. So curricular programs, okay, should be the backbone, should be the basis for the co-curricular programs. Okay, without these curricular programs, the co-curricular programs shouldn't exist. The co-curricular programs are there to support the curricular program. That's why it's called co-curricular programs, because they exist to support the curricular programs, things that cannot be integrated in the curricular programs, because co-curricular programs are non-negotiable, well-structured. So there are things that cannot be taught to the students in terms of not just knowledge, but also behavior and certain skills. And that's why the co-curricular programs are there to help and allow teachers and students to extend what they need to extend from the curricular programs to the co-curricular programs. Iba pa agad ang non-curricular programs, pero hindi ko sasama dito kasi dapat yun po ay outside the school. Alright? Now, halimbawa, ito po yung ating mga curricular programs. We have the Araling Palipunan, Negosyo sa Pagpapakatao. Alright? So, inuna ko po for me in the curricular programs, there's what we call as hierarchy and the integration of the mapping of the standards of the curricular programs. It totally depends on the philosophy, vision, mission, goals of the school. Kung nakalagay sa school ay tech voc ang kanyang pinaka-main focus talaga, therefore, unahin mo ang tech voc. All the other subject areas are support to the tech voc. Although they are equal in terms of units, but the way they will be mapped out in doing curriculum planning, dapat it's towards making our students, kasi nakalagay sa philosophy mo di ba? Skilled, okay? With technical vocational skills. Dapat bigyan mo ng mas maraming attention at bigyan mo ng core, gawin mong core ang tech voc mo. Pero kung wala nakalagay po sa inyong philosophy ng inyong school, ang nakalagay po doon ay how do you call this? Civic-minded graduates or responsive to the changes of society, catalyst of change in society. I think when we say catalyst of change, we're looking at the students' cultural perspectives, civic ideas, political ideas, economic ideas, and therefore I would say if I'm going to list down the curricular programs would be unahin ko muna Araling Panlipunan. Okay? Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao. Dahil ito yung mga subjects na makakatulong to realize. Okay? Ito yung unang-unang subject na dapat pinag-iigting para ma-realize ang PVMG. Hindi po yung ino-offer lang natin ang mga subjects na hindi natin tinitingnan at inaayos pinaplano in such a way that it realizes the philosophy, vision, mission, goals of the school. Ang nangyayari sa mga school kasi sa mga learning programs po natin ay hindi natin inaayos ang curriculum programs in such a way that it realizes the PVMG of the school. So ang feeling ng mga bata, nakakuha ng araling palipunan, para saan? Anong natutunan ko? Natapos ko ni ko sa magpapakatao, para saan? Anong natutunan ko doon? Di ba? Dapat may tao. Ano ang contribution ng araling palipunan sa magpapakatao sa pagkabuo ng isang estudyante bilang tao as based on the school's philosophy, PVMG. Otherwise, bakit pa gumawa ng PVMG ang school kung hindi pala yun ang basihan ng inyong curriculum plans as basis for the learning programs? Okay? Now for me, ang co-curricular programs po natin para merong extension ng natututunan ng bata sa edukasyon sa pagpapakatao at ang palipunan, I would say it's a must for the school to offer student government or the supreme student government. Okay? Tapos kaakibat sa supreme student government ay yung COMELEC. Yan. Kung ano pa yung mga sunod-sunod na dyan, nakaakibat. Nung ako ay nag-aaral, hindi ako sumali sa student government, pero ay sumali pa ako sa COMELEC. I became the chair of the COMELEC before. Mas gusto ko pa yun. Alright? Say, next is science education. Dapat meron po tayong mga science club. Okay? However you call it, dapat merong counterpart po siya doon sa science club. Next, we have the math education. Counterpart po niya is mathematics club or math club. Pero pwedeng pagbaguhin po para dapat naka-align siya sa math education. Meaning, ibig sabihin po, maghahawak po niyan, ang advisor po ay galing sa math department. EPPTLE, you can call them as entrepreneurial clubs. Pwede ganun. Alala ko ng, sorry ulit ang gagamit. I don't want to use the examples of the schools that I handle kasi I have not asked their permission to divulge some of their curricular programs and co-curricular programs. I'll be using my example before. Nung ako'y nag-aaral po sa Leyte National High School, ang aming pong bawat grade level, meron kami first year. Ang first year namin po ay pagtatahi kami ng first quarter. So after namin matapos ng first quarter, dapat mabenta namin yung tinahi namin. So may entrepreneurial program. So kami po ay at the end ng aming it's either individual resell, pero ang ginawa namin ng section namin is para kami nagtiyangge. Okay? So it could be a co-curricular. The pro clubs, tapos they're already existing. Tapos meron kami pinaka-leader, I forgot, nakalimutan ko pangalan niya. So ang galing-galing talaga na. Naging idol ko po din talaga. Magaling siya. Anyway, so the pro clubs. Then we have MAPE. The MAPE could be the Sports and Performing Arts group. Sumali ako ng choir kasi feeling ko maganda ang boses ko. And then sumali ako ng track and fields. Pero kasi sa aming school noon, we were required to have we are required to be part of the sports program. So we're not just academically inclined, should be academically inclined. Kasama kami sa student government, kasama kami sa science club, pero depende sa grade level yon. So we graduate from one club to another. Meron lang core group po talaga. Then we have language and literacy, that would be the English and Filipino. So we have the campus journalism. So lahat ng mga to ng co-curricular programs are extension of learning programs of the school that allows students to freely apply what they are learning from the curricular programs, okay? And they also learn additional things in the co-curricular programs because the context is very specific. Di ba? Pag curricular programs, very specific in context. While in the curricular programs, hindi mo maibigay ang specific context kasi it should apply to various contexts. Yan po ang pinagkaiba ng curricular programs kasi naka-identify din ang mga context, especially on certain identified performance standards. For the co-curricular programs, talagang specific na talaga. Talagang parang industry-based ang dating niya. Parang pang-professional siya. So that's why it's very important when we do learning programs, when we create learning programs for our students, there should be a strike of balance between curricular programs and co-curricular programs. Okay? So the learning programs are prescribed learning program. That's curricular learning, curricular programs po yan, has structured work experience. So learning programs that fall under curricular programs are prescribed. Hindi pwedeng hindi kunin. Kasi structured siya na talaga may prerequisite siya. So dapat matapos muna ang grade level na to bago ko ma-promote sa other grade levels. Okay? And then it has a certain flow of structure. Sabi natin certain flow, it starts with leadership component. Learnership component. Ibig sabihin, dapat meron siyang matututo muna siya, makikinig muna sa mga lectures or sa mga input. And then we also have apprenticeship component. Apprenticeship component here in the learning program for curricular is where the teacher supports the students by providing them with formative activities, which allows our students to make errors. Okay? That's what's good about the learning program in the curricular. Dapat na mayroong apprenticeship component. Ina-allow po natin ang bata na mag-practice at allow mistakes. And via mistakes, the teacher is able to facilitate how to help students overcome those inadequacies and levels of the information that they have not mastered yet. And then after apprenticeship is now what we call a skills program component, where you allow students to do practice on their own. Kasi apprenticeship kasi kasama pa yung teacher. Okay? And then skills program component is where the student is on his own. Nagpa-practice siya pa rin, pero on his own pa rin siya. And then finally, we have the internship component kung saan ang mga bata sila na lang po ang gagawa. So in the curriculum po natin, sa K-12 curriculum, learnership component is what we call as the input level from teacher. Apprenticeship component is the formative level for the teacher and student to work together. Skills program is now student independent practice, while internship component now is the performance or assessment part. Para makita po natin kung ang bata can now have imbibed mentally, emotionally, and physically all the things they're supposed to learn from the learning program. Okay? So these are the four basic components. Sir, bakit iba po ang ginamit yung terms? These are the technical terms being used in curriculum instruction when we talk about learning programs. Okay? And learnership component po natin simply put as input or teacher input or content input. Apprenticeship component is what we call as formative activities. Skills program component is what we call as drills. Okay, drills and student practice, student independent practices. Internship component now is the release perspective, where the students are now able to individually or as a group perform or produce a product. Okay. Let's proceed to question number 2. Okay, what is the importance of learning programs to the holistic development of learners? So why do we need to come up with curricular programs? Really, my tongue is, may problema pa ako kasi nag-uubo-ubo pa ako talaga. So wait lang, inom lang ako ng konti. Namamalag ako. The question I think is, why do we need to ensure that we provide our students with curricular programs, learning programs, and then co-curricular programs? Di ba pwedeng curricular na lang, wala nang co-curricular? Kasi dami nang gagawin ng mga teachers. Sasabi ko lang po, we need to strike a balance between structured and unstructured learning programs. Kasi dapat ma-allow po natin ang creativity ng mga bata to and then application of what they're learning from the curricular program. So the learning programs have very high stakes influence on the holistic development of our learners. Sorry. So education with holistic perspective is concerned with the development of every person's intellectual, emotional, social, physical, artistic, creative, and spiritual potentials. All right. There's a possibility that our students are academically inclined, but they may also be artistically inclined. So paano kung wala po tayong co-curricular activities, and then asa nilalabas ang outlet niya? Sample lang po nung panahon namin kasi mas maraming curricular kaysa sa co-curricular programs. Halimbawa, may classmate kami na sobrang talino talaga. Palagi siyang nasa top 3 sa Divine Word. Little that we know, magaling pala siya mag-paint. Lumabas na lang, nalaman na lang namin later on after nasa college na, after college. Kasi wala namang outlet nun sa school for that our particular classmate to show the other side of her abilities and capabilities. On my side naman po, I wasn't given the opportunity to, hindi, kasi talaga ako nung elementary pa lang, high school, adelantado na talaga ako. Pag gusto ko umarte, wala akong pakialam, kahit wala akong skills nung sasali talaga ako. The problem with our co-curricular programs is that it's highly selective. what the learning programs is trying to tell us, what the National Research Council is trying to tell us is that it must be available for all students. And when we say selection process, it could probably on the choice of the students. Okay, may exploratory po dapat. So, siguro tatlo, apat, and then later on, mag-circulate siya. So, dapat lahat na yan napupuntahan para madadaanan ng bata. Para lahat develop. Hindi lang yung gusto lang ng bata. All right. So these are the holistic areas, the areas that that we need to take care of to develop holistic programs. So these dapat makagawa daw tayo ng mga learning programs that hit the 8 holistic education components. We have core academics, which I think I've already shown you. Then we have the emotional development. Do we have programs, learning programs for the development, emotional programs, emotional development of our students? Ano yung mga emotional development? Would it fall under arts, music? Sabi nga nila yung arts and music help our students on emotion development as well. Critical thinking skills. We could have science and mathematics for that too. All right. Conflict and resolution skills. Like, do we have a student government for that? Do we have a grievance committee for the students? Do we also have, say, uh, a recollection perhaps, but again, pag public school kasi hindi naman tayo nagano masyado ng religion, so hindi pwedeng ano lang pang Roman Catholic perspective. So it's basically I would go for a student government kasi that's where the students are the student leaders are given the responsibility to resolve student conflict. Next, character formation, yung mga leadership trainings po natin. These are learning programs, leadership and team building po. Ito po yung sinasabi ko since before that the leadership and team building should be available for all students. That's what I experienced from when I was in elementary po. So ngayon pong nasa Sister sa Mary po, ako lahat po. So lahat ng mga estudyante dapat dumaan ng leadership at saka team building. Tapos from out of these trainings, learning programs po, doon na ngayon ang mga bata nakakapili sino sa kanila ang leader nila kasi nag-emerge. Hindi yung popularity ang contest para sa student government. Okay? Next is healthy social skills. Ito pa natin sa sports na po natin. Manners. Well, the manners, I suppose, would be more of a hidden curriculum, I suppose, and also institutional rules. Hands-on lessons, mga practical. Yung mga workshops, learning, those are learning programs na this should be done in a workshop or laboratory. Okay? So dapat ang school, kung meron ganung program, so science, dapat meron kang room or workshop or laboratory for experimentation. And likewise for MAPE and EPPTLE. It seeks to engage students in teaching, learning process, and encourages personal and collective responsibility. Because with all of this, components being taken care of, students realize that they should not only be good in academic programs, but all other programs as well, because it contributes to their holistic development, and they become a more well-rounded, happy individuals. Okay, wala yung mga if. What if? All right. So at the middle of it all, what we need, the learning programs aim for a more holistic educational program for our students. So how do we strike the balance between, how do we make sure that the learning programs that we provide for our students are within holistic education perspective? Sorry for that. One, we should provide them with schooling. This is what we call as the curriculum, okay? And the other one is education. This is what we call now as the unstructured, also known as the hidden curriculum. Sir, magkaiba pala ang schooling sa education. So again, I'm using these terms. These are technical terms in curriculum instruction. So magkaiba kasi ang schooling sa education. Schooling is well structured. So when we teach our students in the academic perspective, in the curricular programs, we are schooling them. Why? This is the ought to know. If we are educating our students, we are teaching them based on their developmental needs, their felt needs, their emotional needs, and all other needs. We call them as educating them because we provide them with other learning experiences that would hold all other domains. So education, yeah. So how do we strike a balance between schooling and education so we can have holistic education learning programs at school? So provide formalized processes. Ito yung sinasabi po natin na well-structured ang pagtuturo ng mga teachers natin. Consistent po. So, kung ito ang formalized process po ng science po, so lahat ng science teacher dapat yun ang pagtuturo. Hindi every grade level na tuturo ng science, iba-iba ang gustong gawin. May mga teacher na puro lecture lang, may mga teacher na puro paggawa, may mga teacher naman na... So, ang nangyayari po sa school hindi naging holistic kasi ang mga bata hindi nila consistently sa ano ba talaga dapat matutunan namin. Mag-adjust sa curricular programs or mag-adjust sa style ng teacher. Hindi ba baliktad? Dapat si teacher ang nag-a-adjust to make sure i-formalize nila so that the students adjust to the demands of the subject, not the demands of the teacher. Not the demands of the individual teachers. Kasi dapat ang mga teachers sa isang asignatura o sa isang disiplina, isa lang dapat ang idea nila na ang dapat matutunan ng bata sa programang ito or sa curricular program ito. That's why it's called formalized. Next, focus on the young. So, ibig sabihin, titingnan po natin ano ba ang how will they learn? Okay? Focus on the learn. Ano ba matutunan ng mga bata ang mga subjects na ito? That's the core question for schooling. Okay? And finally, structured pattern. May pagkakasunod-sunod, merong motivation. Kung anong ang nasusundan po natin, did we use, I think, Thorndike or Garnier, ang ginagamit natin sa format ng structured pattern. Meron tayong developmental phase, you have abstraction, evaluation and assessment. So, structured talaga siya. Well, on the other hand, hindi lang puro dapat ganyan na learning programs ang na ipoprovide natin sa mga bata. For holistic education perspective, we need to teach our students contextualized process. Like, may tinuturo tayo sa mga bata na mathematics. Pwede po yan matutunan sa contextualized process mathematics like Sudoku. Alright? Or application to, say, chess. Okay? Next would be focus on the learning process. If schooling is focused on how students will learn, education focus more on how they will learn it. So more specific, more context-based. Okay? And next is continuous development. Kasi nga wala siyang structure. So nakikita mo niya na allow students to acclimatize themselves in the responsibilities that they have in the organizations. So, continuous siya, nade-develop talaga. So, hindi lang tinitingnan dito ang cognitive development, but also the social, emotional development component in the education. Alright? So, pag nag-strike na natin ang balance ng schooling education, then we are providing our students with holistic education learning programs. Now, let's proceed to the third question. How do schools know if the learning programs are relevant and responsive to the needs of the learners? So, dapat ito ang basihan ng mga teachers kung, kasi may mga ganito po implement tayo ng co-curricular programs, so that we are not able to discern whether they are actualizing what students should learn and learn from these programs na parang sayang naman ang efforts ng mga teachers, di ba? So, dapat meron tayong mga at least indicators or factors for us to know, factors that we could use to know whether the learning programs that we are providing for our students are relevant and responsive to their needs, okay? So let me begin with holistic school management framework, okay? This is from I got this from one of the readings readings before when I took units of curriculum instruction at University of Santo Tomas. This is from Harvard University, really, very comprehensive way of looking at the school. So dapat daw, unang titingnan natin ay learners. The school exists for the learners. Okay? And the teachers. Okay? Not just the learners, but the teachers. Because if we do not provide learning programs for the teachers, and we do not help our teachers improve themselves and become more proficient, then it will also affect the quality of the learning of the students in the learning programs. Okay, there should also be support system. These are non-teaching support system and these are the non-teaching personal support to both teachers and students. We call them as the librarian, the staff. Okay, the school that handles the school facilities. Under the school support system, we have the school organizations. the school calendar, right? The school administration, and we have the external stakeholders. They are support system to teachers and learners. Now we have the support staffs. We have health providers, school administrators as well, information specialists. Ito pa yung sinasabi natin librarian, but they are now called information specialists. And of course, the other school non-teaching personnel. So the support system and the support staff, they are the ones that collaborate together in order to support the teachers. Okay. And then the support system, like the organizations club, support the teacher in helping the learners learn what they're supposed to learn in both curricular and co-curricular programs. The support staff also help the learners in extending what they're learning from the classroom towards the school community first. Then, of course, probably there are extension programs outside the school, and therefore the support system supports the learners. So, therefore, the holistic school management framework is that all eyes are towards both the teachers and the learners. Okay? Kasi hindi siya maging holistic kung ang nagbibigay ang nag-i-implement ng program, ito yung sinasabi ko nina, nag-i-implement ng ating learning programs are not provided support, are not given training to consistently implement, roll out these learning programs. It cannot be based on their individual ideas, individual interpretation of what the learning program should be and how it should be implemented to the learners. Dapat klaro po yan kasi nga at the end of the day, these learning programs are towards the attainment of the school's PVMG, and they are manifested through our learners. Okay? So these are the meaningful learning programs that we need to look into as indicators for us to know whether our learning programs are relevant and responsive. They are in classroom experiences, and out of classroom experiences. So these are the things. So pag sinabi po natin out of classroom experiences, ito na yung mga co-curricular programs. Pwede rin po mga extracurricular programs, pwede rin non-curricular programs. But again, ibig sabihin po nito, it should emanate first from the in-classroom experiences. So it should emanate first in the curricular program. So number one indicator, it should be culturally responsive teaching. Okay, one indicator is that there is culturally responsive teaching. So the learning program is rolled out using culturally responsive teaching. We already discussed the culture, discussed it early on. We have the cultural expectations, the cultural values, and the cultural perspectives. So tatlong cultural factors na yan. Again, cultural perspective, expectations, cultural expectations, and cultural values. So ibig sabihin, dapat itinuturo, ini-embody ng teacher ang lahat ng gusto mo tutunan ng mga kaugalian ng mga bata, ang behavior ng bata, at ang kanilang motivation. Okay? Next would be employment of differentiation. Ito yung sinasabi po natin kanina na differentiation means our students have different learning styles. Okay? Have different learning styles. They have different ways of learning it. But our aim here is to consider the individual needs of our students. Okay, differentiation is the idea that try to meet the individual needs of our students. So kahit pa yung collaborative ang binibigay po natin, big group, we still address the individual needs of our students. In the group po siya collaborative pero highly individualized still. All right? Next is consideration of acquisition of learning styles. Now, kung sa employment of differentiation considers the individual differences of our students, the third element or factor for us to know that the learning program is being implemented well and effectively is the consideration and acquisition of learning styles. Indeed, I know that we've been taught that we need to start where the students are coming from, correct? Kung ano ang learning style ng mga bata, dapat nirespeto natin at inadres natin ang mga learning styles ng mga estudyante natin. That's differentiation. Pero there's also what we call as students must also learn all other learning styles. Bakit po? Dahil hindi siya pwedeng, ang gusto nating holistic development ng bata, hindi pwedeng solitary learner lang siya. Dapat maging collaborative and social learner siya. So, we are helping our students to get out of their of their box. So they think outside the box, they perform outside the box, and therefore explore all other things that they have not developed yet. Hanggang senior high school sana, posible naman hindi niya ma-develop hanggang senior high school. Hindi yung pagpasok sa school natin, mahiyain na siya. Pag graduate, mahiyain pa rin. Ah, paano mo nangyari? Sir, kasi nirespeto namin ang kanyang individual self. Also, you employ differentiation, pero you did not consider the third factor of relevance and responsiveness of the learning programs, the acquisition of other learning styles. Okay. And then finally, the fourth component or the fourth factor that we need to consider to know that our learning programs are responsive and relevant is that there is development of critical, creative, and metacognitive thinking. So it allows our students to develop, be it curricular or co-curricular learning programs, it develops critical, creative, and metacognitive thinking among our students. And how do we develop this? Again, we could probably use art and questioning strategies. We could also use the Bloom's taxonomy. In the co-curricular programs, this is where the meetings come in, the giving of responsibilities. Kasi nga dito nalalaman ng mga bata na, ay, kahit pala walang grade ito, dapat gawin ko ito kasi this is my responsibility to the organization. Even if I don't get a grade from this, but I have, yun po. That's what's good about curricular kasi nga, they do things not because they're going to get a grade of it, because they know accountability, they're learning accountability. The fourth and last question is, how do schools create and implement relevant and responsive learning programs for our learners? Number one, of course, is that create encouraging, engaging learning environment through student-centered activities, encouraging independent learning, accepting student contributions, seeing a rich variety of resources, and providing mobility and flexibility in grouping. That it would be for in-classroom experiences. Curricular po ito. Okay, so encouraging varied experiences, varied learning activities for the class to make it more fun. That's why it's called holistic. It's because students are learning things no matter how difficult it is, but they're also engaged with it, engaged in it, and they are having fun. Modify the learning process. Second one is modify the learning process through use of inquiry, higher order thinking activities, group interactions, variable pacing, creativity, student risk taking, and freedom of choice in learning activities. This is what we've been doing. Ito yung mga activities na pwede gawin. So your group choose which one of those. So may mga time na we allow students to choose what they want to accomplish, and then there are times na it's dictated to them. So strike a balance about choices, making choices, and accepting responsibility. Kasi hindi pwedeng, choice ko to, pero what about accountability development? So in real life, it's always a balance of what I want to do and the tasks that I should do. Okay, na kailangan kong gawin talaga kahit hindi ko gusto, dapat kong gawin kasi I'm accountable for it. So in school, ganun po dapat din. Ang learning programs po natin teaches our students to make choices, but at the same time, fulfill and be accountable of the tasks provided for them or given to them. And finally, modify the product through facilitating different ways for students to demonstrate learning, such as the use of authentic assessments. Yung sinasabi po natin na pwede tayong gumamit ng mga traditional activities and also what we call as authentic and creative activities like talk shows, infomercials. Ang dami na po mga lumabas na po ngayon na mga one that I really like so much is the video essay. Gustong-gusto ng mga batang paggawa ng video essay because it's a combination of their writing skills and representing skills and editing skills and video skills and technology skills rolled into one package of product, and they so love it. So we try to modify that. It allows our students to put together all the skills they have learned from other subject areas, and once they learn this, they are now able to be more equipped and skilled to perform their task in the co-curricular programs. So this is what I call as learning pathways. So for us to create really good really good learning programs for our students is for us to create learning pathways for our students. It could be done as a group by grade level. It could be done as individual, but I highly suggest it should be done individually so that matatrack po natin ano na ang nagagawa ng bata, ano ang na-accomplish ng bata. So it refers, learning pathways refers to the specific courses, academic programs, and learning experiences that individual students complete as they progress in their education toward graduation. Ano ang performance niya sa curricular program, ano na ang kanyang nakukuha sa co-curricular program. Is he succeeding or not? If not, ano ang mga binigay po natin na mga intervention program for them to succeed in their choices of their curricular, of their co-curricular. Kasi co-curricular pa rin choices eh. And curricular hindi choice. Talagang dapat mong gawin yun. So this is to illustrate simply the learning pathway is that we need to see the journey of our students and how they are learning and what they are learning and the level of quality of the learning programs that they go through. So from preschool to primary, ano ang kanyang curricular performance, ano ang kanyang performance sa co-curricular. Sabi natin, sir, wala po siyang co-curricular. Aba, dapat meron. Kasi nga mas mabalance. Ayaw po kasi ng bata, ayaw kasi ng mga magulang din. O di dapat kausapin ng mga magulang na importante yan sa holistic development. Kasi may mga bata nga naman talaga na ayaw ng co-curricular activities. Pero dahil nga mga magulang din ay ayaw din suportahan ang school, so wag na lang. Magkakaaway pa ang school at saka hindi dapat there should be a balance between co-curricular responsibilities, exposure of the students, and exposure to co-curricular activities. Intermediate, moving to junior high school, and then moving to senior high school. Now, as we track them out, itong mga levels na ito yung sinasabi po natin na schooling, naka-structure siya, preschool up to senior high school. Tapos, yung sinasabi po natin is tracking or learning pathways is ano po ang binibigay na programa ng school to help students, intervention programs, to help students improve their performance in curricular and co-curricular activities. So, tinawag po natin sa learning pathways kasi we're able to see and track the path the students are taking in the learning programs that they accomplish in the school. All right. Minsan kasi minsan, I think most schools do not have learning pathways. I already talked about this. I also call this as a system. I call this as profiling. I call this as profiling pero kasi hindi ko pa tapos ang paggawa ng manual na yun. So the technical term for learning profiles, learner's profile is learning pathways. Okay. So, ano mga intervention programs? So, the intervention programs, instructional programs, these are all called learning programs for our students. Okay? With that, these are the things that I have can impart to you. All other information about learning programs for teachers will be given to you in the next series of webinars, probably next year na po yun kasi that would fall under professional. That's Philippine Professional Standards for school supervisors and school heads. So if you have questions, I'm now ready to answer those questions. Mitch, do we have questions? Wala, bakit? Okay.
Yes, po, Brother Ricky, we have here two questions.
Two questions.
The first one is from Miss Cecile Villanueva. How can we ensure a culturally responsive and relevant teaching and learning in our new learning modalities po?
Yun po. For us to consider cultural perspectives, well, the cultural responsiveness of the way we deliver is, of course, knowing the profiles of our students. Ano ang religious backgrounds ng mga bata, linguistic backgrounds. I already talked about that last week, about the profiling of our students, their linguistic, cultural, and religious backgrounds, how we consider those. And on that perspective, we will now have a picture of ano ang mga cultural, ano mga kultura meron ng mga estudyante natin. At yun din po basehan po natin ng paggawa ng mga activities, ng mga examples. It becomes cultural responsive if you are able to address and meet the students' cultural needs. Kasi mas mataas daw ang learning ng bata pag ang mga samples and context na ginagamit ni teachers sa pagtuturo ng isang asignatura ay base sa culture, would say culture of the students is their meaningful experiences. Okay, this is not necessarily what we call the ethnological culture, the perspective, na talagang the profound idea of culture. Simply put, as knowing who our students are and a relevant context, sources of relevant context. Alas, the problem with the pandemic is that nauna pong gawin ang modules, nauna pong gawin ang learning materials bago po imbestigahan ang profile ng mga bata. So I'm not sure kung ang ating learning materials are culturally responsive to our students. Kasi pag sinabi natin culturally responsive, dapat may profile tayo ng mga bata on their linguistic background, religious background, cultural background. Yan pong ginagawa namin sa Sisters of Mary. Nalalaman po namin nagkakaroon muna kami ng profiling ng mga estudyante. So may mga estudyante kami galing Benguet, galing pong Bicol. Our examples, our context, consider those places where our students come from. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Ricky. And our last question
Last question.
is from Miss Alexandra Gabriel. What are the ways po that we can do to enhance our curriculum in our schools in response to global community challenges po? Thank you.
Mm. It's very important for us to do benchmarking. That's what we've been doing as well. Now, if you want to be actually, I know that most schools would like to go for global responsiveness. What's important is also that we consider first whether it's responsive to the local. Of course, hindi naman tayo makagawa ng global if hindi tayo muna nag-identify ng responsiveness in the local arena. So for us to be globally responsive in our design for the curriculum or our curricular programs, it has to be rooted to be responsive locally first, and then towards the national goals, okay, the national goal, and then international, and then global. How do we do that? We do benchmarking. Hahanap po talaga kayo ng mga international schools international schools and industries po. Industries, ano mga kailangan na kayo ng mga industries sa global arena na kailangan maipasok sa ating curriculum. Halimbawa, ano mang pangailangan ngayon I think the number one industry na medyo tumataas po talaga ay yung ating mga online businesses. Okay? So siguro ipapasok po natin ang mga digital literacies in our curriculum. So saan po namin makukuha yung mga ganong data? United Nations is constantly on their website, is constantly posting benchmark. Sila, kung ayaw po kasi wala naman tayong kapasidad na mag-benchmark sa iba-ibang bansa, di ba? So that's ang dalawang agencies po na dapat po nating palaging binabasa. We always visit their website, would always be World Bank and United Nations. Yan po palagi. Ako po as a person, yan po palagi ang basehan ko. Kasi I will be, nandito lang ako sa Pilipinas. Wala naman akong pera para makapag-research and benchmarking sa different countries of the world. Pero there's already an agency that is doing that for us. And then they have a pool of researchers. You have, of course, World Bank, and then you have United Nations. And then right now, I think USAID and AusAid, yung dalawang mga aid yan, from Australia and from the United States, are now contributing to this information that we can get from information that we can improve our curriculum. Ano pong i-integrate po natin ng mga literacies, mga information, experiences that should be integrated in our curricular programs and co-curricular programs. So please do visit United Nations, do visit USAID, AusAid. AusAid is Australian aid, and we have, of course, World Bank. World Bank has really tremendous researches on how the third world countries or emerging economic and political countries can participate in the global arena via addressing the identified global skills that a graduate or individual must acquire in the school to be responsive to the needs of not just the local but also the global needs of a worker or a teacher. Meron po mga may mga industries to. Very nice po. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Ricky. That's all the question that we have for now. Any last reminders for our viewers for today po?
Okay, so here's the challenge for us guys. So, science pa rin ang lagay ko dun. All right, so improving learning and teaching assessment for all students. This is basically the learning, what we want for the learning programs. It must be the input, how we delivered it, and then of course knowing whether it was effective. Because only through assessment, whether it's quantitative or qualitative assessment, we are able to gauge whether our programs are effective or not. Is it responsive or not? Kasi hindi pwedeng, ay, nag-enjoy ang bata. Kahit sinabi ko po dito na nag-enjoy yung mga bata, dapat assessment should always be a component of any learning program for that matter. Kaya nga po sinasabi ko palagi sa lahat ng schools na hawak ko, dapat palagi po tayo mayroong post-evaluation of all the activities that we have or that we provide for our students and teachers so that we would know whether it was effective or not, it was relevant or responsive. Kasi minsan hindi nga tayo nag-evaluate. So how are we going to improve our programs? Okay, so yun po siya. So again, this is from Harvard University. I'm sorry, I'm a lover of the research done by the research unit of Harvard University because one of my dreams in life is to graduate kahit man ang certificate sa Harvard University and I could die. Just kidding. I wouldn't mind die. I can be so related. So building leadership capacity in collaborative culture, yan po importante. Dapat lahat ng teacher involved, hindi makikitaan ng mga estudyante na, si teacher na to, pabanjing-banjing. Tapos ito pa yung ano ang rules and regulations sa school, sinasabi na you should participate in all activities. Pero pagdating sa mga activities na yun, ang nakikita lang ay itong mga teacher. Pero yung ibang teacher hindi nakikita. Ano yun? You require students and yet the teachers are not. We are creating double standards at school. Next, we also have the creating a school culture to support high achievement. So talagang magiging kultura. Mataas daw ang expectation sa mga bata. Pag mataas din ang expectation sa lahat ng tao sa school. So high stakes dapat sa bata, pero para high stakes din sa lahat ng estudyante. A good example, high stakes is we require our students to wear uniform, and yet some teachers do not wear uniform. We require our students to be prim and proper, to greet, and yet our guards in the gates are not courteous and are not greeting them. So, ano ibig sabihin nun? Double standards ulit. Next, we have database inquiry and decision making. So, it's very important for us to do research. And sinasabi ko mga post-evaluation for all the programs that we have. Then we have networking, of course, collaborative efforts of the stakeholders that we have. And then finally, we have developing school, community, and capacity. Trainings are very important. Okay, how do we do that? Teach curriculum grounded on standards. So again, curricular. Sinasabi po natin, it always boils down to the curriculum programs that we provide for our students. Then instructional methods to prepare all students. Train our teachers na consistent ang pedagogical methods. Say, kung itong mathematics, lahat ng math teacher pare-pareho tinuturo na standards. The way it's taught, hindi yung depende sa teaching style ko kasi ibang teacher ako kahit math ang tinuturo namin, magkaiba kaming teacher. Hindi po ma'am, parehas kayo nagtuturo ng math na subject. So dapat consistent kayo lahat dyan sa mathematics. Okay? Preparation of teachers, very important. Organized relationship for learning. Ito yung sinasabi ko, pinapakita sa atin kanina na dapat may support staff, then support systems. Then govern democratically by all staff members. Yung sinasabi natin, we have grievance committees. We have student government na pag ito ay pag ang mga conflicts ay students, dapat meron tayong sistema na it should be addressed first by the supreme student government, allowing students to resolve their own conflicts. And if the students are not able to resolve their conflicts in their level, it's now referred to a higher level. Packet ng packet. The point there is that we're allowing our students to address, okay, and do something about the problems that arise. Govern democratically. And then provide safe and healthy school environment. I think you know that already. And involve the different stakeholders in supporting learning, especially with the pandemic right now. We really need to enlist the support of the parents and the primary caregivers at home because we cannot implement kasi yung ano po natin, yung hidden curriculum po, yung pinag-usapan po natin kanina ng mga factors that contribute to the effectiveness, relevance, and responsiveness of learning programs, yung cultural perspective, expectations, values, lahat ng po yun ay nasa bahay na. So the hidden curriculum is no longer with the school, nasa bahay na. So dapat na-train po natin ng mga magulang. Kasi naman, ang mga magulang kung hindi educator, hindi nila mabibigyan ng tamang atmosphere at home to make the learning more effective. Now, here's a challenge for you that I got from, of course, one of our idols, Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi's views on education were focused on an all around education, not just literacy. He stressed on the development of a child as a whole, not just the mind. He even said that wounded children become wounded adults and can destroy themselves and possibly others. Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. It is very rightly said, building up a child is easier than it is to repair and adopt. Ang ganda, di ba, no? Building up a child is easier than it is to repair and adopt. Thus, teachers and parents have a very big role to play in a child's life or a learner's life. So that's our challenge, how to collaborate with parents. And another perspective on the importance of learning programs in school is from Swami Vivekananda, Kanand, one of the emerging philosophers, a well-known philosopher, is she said that the education which does not help the common mass of people to equip themselves for the struggle for life, which does not bring out strength of character, a spirit of philanthropy, and the courage of a lion, is it worth the name? Real education is that which enables one to stand on one's own legs. And I would like to end my session with, of course, one emerging philosopher by the name of R. McGarry, which I said way back in 2016 in my presentation. I said, our collective sacrifice is worth a child's future. So this is not a one teacher effort, a one school effort. It is a whole collective sacrifice, both the parents, external stakeholders, internal stakeholders to help educate our students for the future. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you next week on our another series of, I think, Domain 5 of the PPST. See you again next week. Thank you very much for uh, listening, and I hope you'll have takeaways from the seminar and do something about it. And please share it to others. Thank you very much.
Here we have it. On behalf of VIBAL Group Incorporated, I would like to thank our speaker for today for this insightful and, of course, very inspiring learning session. It is truly an honor to have you with us today, Brother Ricky. And to all our Kabibal viewers, our thanks to you for your continuous patronage to our daily learning session. We encourage you to subscribe and watch on our official Bibal Facebook page and YouTube channel. Muli maraming salamat at magandang araw sa ating lahat. Stay safe everyone!